Let's bring in Mike Florio from ProFootballTalk.com. He joins us now. I've been talking about widening the field a little bit here. I know that the NFL throws out, just, hey, what do you think about this? Should this be considered, Mike?
Well, I understand that this is part of the broader effort to make the game safer, and this hasn't come from anyone in the league yet. Bill Polian suggested it. He's not connected to any team now. He's not on the competition committee anymore. I'm trying to find out whether or not anybody currently on the competition committee is giving this thing any credence. But this idea that it would reduce the high-impact collisions, look, what it does is it spreads everybody out. And what's it going to put a premium on then? Smaller, faster players. This is a way to put a weight limit on the NFL without actually putting a weight limit on the NFL. You're putting a practical weight limit out there because those 400-pound guys no longer are going to be as viable if you have more ground to cover side to side. And you open up the offense, you score more points, you gain more yards, and you make the game more exciting that way, while hopefully taking away some of the hits that get these guys messed up.
Okay, but what would be the big negative here?
Well, look, anytime there's a proposed change in the name of safety, you have a group of fans who will shout loudly that you're changing the game, that you're taking out the hits. We tune in for the hits. We want the hits on kick returns. We want the big hits on plays from scrimmage. And at a certain point, if football looks differently coming through our HD TVs than it always has, that's when people may tune out. And that's the balance the NFL's trying to strike. And then the one factor in all of this, Dan, with every effort the NFL makes to try to keep the game safer, make the game safer, you have the players who complain about it. The men who are taking the risks don't want it to change. So this is something that is here to stay, and there's going to be all sorts of ideas and suggestions, and they're going to try to make it safer so the next generation of players don't or won't have good standing to sue. I mean, I hate to say it all comes down to that, but it sure feels like it all comes down to managing litigation in the future.
Joe Flacco, contract. Any chance that somebody, kind of slips in and will pony up the first-round picks for Joe Flacco, that he does not go back to Baltimore?
Hey, Dan, I was told over the weekend that there were teams thinking about making a run at Flacco even before he had that postseason for the ages. I mean, what's 2 first-round picks to give up for a quarterback that you know is good enough to help you win? Teams give up first-round picks every year in the hopes of finding a quarterback who may turn into a great quarterback. You throw another first-round pick onto that pile, and it's a first-round pick from a year from now, and you can get a guy who just won a Super Bowl MVP. I think that there will be several teams that will be able to put together the kind of an offer that the Ravens can't match. Look at a team like the Browns. And wouldn't the Browns love to steal Flacco from the team that left Cleveland? You could put together a deal where there's like a $40 million cap number in 2013 because the Browns have enough space to do it. The Ravens would never be able to match it. So they cannot put him out there on that non-exclusive franchise tag. That's a big decision they have to make. And there's like $6 million in cap space that are hanging in the balance. They put him out there. I think there will be teams that pursue him. Now, he may not want to leave, but there will be teams that pursue him.
Percy Harvin's future in Minnesota is what?
Murky, cloudy, and at this point unlikely. When the starting quarterback, Christian Ponder, does a radio interview in January and speaks of him in the past tense, that's not a good sign. And over the weekend, the general manager of the team, Rick Spielman, was very evasive on whether or not they want him on the team. If they're going to trade him, they want to maximize trade value, so they're not going to say that relationship has run its course. But there were plenty of signs last year. And in the offseason, he flat out said he wanted to be traded. They either have to get him happy and sign him to a long-term contract, or they have to find somebody who will take him off their hands. But when you take him, you have to understand you're taking a guy who's been a headache everywhere it's been. They did a good job of keeping it under wraps when he was at Florida. The Vikings, for the most part, have kept it under control. But this guy's been a problem, and he's highly talented, but you better have a structure in place to minimize those problems and get the most out of him.
He's Mike Florio from ProFootballTalk.com, also the NBC Sports Network. Reggie Bush doesn't have an offer from the Dolphins yet. Why not?
He's not going to get one because Reggie Bush is going to want more money than what the Dolphins are willing to pay him because the Dolphins would rather use 2 or 3 guys. That's what Joe Philbin, the head coach of the Dolphins, did when he was the offensive coordinator in Green Bay, multiple running backs. That way you don't have to pay anybody a ton of money. And you don't take that risk that guy you paid all the money is going to tear an ACL week 2, and then you got to go with the younger, cheaper guys anyway. So Reggie Bush is going to want more money and a bigger role than what the Dolphins want to give him. So he shouldn't be surprised they haven't made an offer. I'd be surprised if they do.
heading into the combine, big names who will and won't work out?
Well, how about Matt Barkley? Now that we're into the shirts and T-shorts phase of trying to get your draft stock up, when you go out and play pitch and catch in the backyard with your former college teammates and everybody's impressed that you complete 48 out of 50 passes, now it's time for some of these guys to artificially climb. Their performances last year be damned, and a lot of people think that Barkley is going to start climbing up again, and he said that this is the biggest test of his life, and he's going to do everything at the combine, and for good reason. He's got to rebuild his draft stock. So we'll see guys start to climb up now that we get away from football season and into this artificial, how fast can a guy run in a straight line phase of the off season.
What about Wes Welker's future in New England?
Well, I think they'd love to keep him, but they're not going to want to pay what he's going to want. And the question becomes, do you walk away from Tom Brady and take more money to go somewhere else? I think at the end of the day, the player's got to stand up to his agent and say, look, I like it here. I got a good thing here. I still haven't won a Super Bowl ring here. I want to be part of this. But to be part of it, he's going to have to take less money than he could get elsewhere.
And you got Rob Ryan now with the Saints. I guess they have to get better because they're the worst defense statistically in the history of the NFL.
They can't get worse. If they get worse, it's a major problem.
So was the dude a good hire for the Saints?
Well, I thought they'd lock in on Romeo Crennel, the former Chiefs head coach, because after Greg Williams and everything he did, you need somebody running that defense that you won't have to worry about. And you'd never have to worry about Romeo Crennel doing anything you shouldn't do. But the problem is, I think Coach Sean Payton likes to have that swagger, and Rob Ryan brings that. Now, the question is, can you contain and control a guy like Rob Ryan? There were times in Dallas, Dan, it felt like the guy was trying to take over the team. So I think it's a delicate balance, but they want to have an aggressive defense. And there's a line out there that they don't want Rob Ryan to cross, and that's going to be part of the challenge, is making sure he stays on the right side of that line.
Good to visit with you, bud. Thanks for joining us.
All right, see you, pal.
All right, Mike Florio, ProFootballTalk.com.